Hello and welcome to BYJU'S Exam Prep IAS. Let's get started and look into the first article. The first article is speaking about special category status. What is this special category status? Why is Andhra Pradesh demanding for the special category status? Why is the central government declining it? What is the criteria for according the special category status? What would be the implications or the advantages if such a status is given to a particular state? What is the way forward? Is what is this article all about? First up, what is this special category status? There are many states in India. Some of the states are well developed, some of the states are comparatively backward when it comes to the comparison of the states. What would happen? There might be many states in India which has the advantage of resources. They might have mining resources, they might also have access to the port as well, and they might also have leaders who have much better political awareness and they were able to develop the infrastructure as well. So what we have is much better advanced states in India, while at the same time there are other states which are comparatively backward. Added to this, there are few states which also want to develop, but there are limitations that are imposed by the central government. What are these? Let's say, for example, when it comes to the northeast part of India, these northeastern states have a lot of forest area. These will not be able to develop. Why? Because there are restrictions that are imposed by the central government, as these forests are acting as the carbon sinks as well. Because there are certain areas which have hilly and difficult terrain, because there is low population density or the presence of sizable tribal population, or because a particular state has a strategic location along the international border, or because a state has an economic and infrastructural backwardness, or because of the non-viable nature of the state finances, these states were not able to develop. So what does the central government decide? The central government decides that these states will have to be provided some additional funds. These states will have to be provided finances so that they are also able to have much better advanced human development as well. That is why the central government comes up with what is called as special category status. So remember, this special category status is a tag given by the central government to those state governments which are able to meet all these criteria. So remember, it is given by the central government. It is not a constitutional principle. We have something called as the special status, which might be a constitutional principle as given in Article 371A, 371B, so on and so forth. But this special category status is not a constitutional principle. So for the first time, it was accorded back in the year 1969 by the National Developmental Council of the Planning Commission. So basically, we have the National Developmental Council which accorded few of the states in India back in 1969 with the special category status, which included Jammu and Kashmir, Assam and Nagaland. So the first few states were accorded the special category status back in the year 1969. After this, many other states were also given the special category status. This includes Arunachal Pradesh, Himachal Pradesh, Manipur, Meghalaya, Mizoram, Sikkim, Tripura and Uttarakhand. So we have 3 plus 8 states. So 11 states which are accorded this special category status. What are the advantages of this particular categorization? So the central government has given this particular tag to few states. What would happen if a particular state is granted the special category status? In such a situation, there would be preferential treatment in getting central funds assistance, concession on the excise duty to attract industries to that particular state. A significant 30% of the center's gross budget goes to the special category states. In case of centrally sponsored scheme and external aid, special category states get it in the ratio of 90% and 10% loans, while other states get about 30% of their funds as grants. So these are some of the major advantages, and there would also be tax breaks to attract the investments. For the other states, the advantages will be comparatively less, but if a state is accorded with a special category tag, in that case, all these advantages will go to that state. As a result, these states would be able to reap the benefits of it, and ultimately they would be able to have a much better human development, infrastructure development, as the central government is able to provide assistance to such states. Now the question is, why is Andhra Pradesh seeking the approval of the central government for such a status to be accorded to Andhra Pradesh? That is because we have to go back to the year 2014. What happened in the year 2014? We had the United Andhra Pradesh. The United Andhra Pradesh was bifurcated into Andhra Pradesh and Telangana. What exactly happens immediately after this bifurcation? The capital of United Andhra Pradesh, Hyderabad, was given to Telangana. Andhra Pradesh does not have the new capital. Andhra Pradesh has to construct a new capital. So when it has to construct a new capital, what it will require is huge amount of money. So what happens? The government at the center back then was Congress. What does Congress government do? It promises the Andhra Pradesh, which was split as Andhra Pradesh and Telangana, the new Andhra Pradesh with what is called as special category status. In fact, during that particular period, you also had the former Prime Minister Manmohan Singh, who also says that special category status would also be accorded to Andhra Pradesh. So you have the central government which makes a promise to Andhra Pradesh that they would be provided with special category status. Added to it, during the 2014, you also had canvassing that was taking place by number of political parties. The opposition political party back then happened to be the BJP. In fact, BJP also promised that Andhra Pradesh would be provided the special category status. But something else happens during this period. We also have elections. We also had new party coming into the power. We had the NDA government. We also had the BJP power at the helm of the affairs. What would happen? During this particular period, you also had the recommendations of the 14th Finance Commission. What did the 14th Finance Commission say? The 14th Finance Commission said that this whole concept of special category status should be completely eliminated. So the center says that the 14th Finance Commission effectively removed the concept of special category status after it made its recommendation in the year 2015. So in the year 2015, the 14th Finance Commission makes the recommendation, and according to this recommendation, it says that special category status should not be accorded to states. Added to it, the central government also says that the tax devolution has been increased by the 14th Finance Commission from 32% to about 42% when it comes to the state governments. So we have the tax devolution where the states would be getting an amount which was increased from 32% to about 42%. As a result, the central government goes on to say that we, the central government, since we have increased the tax devolution to the states, we may not accord the special category tag to Andhra Pradesh. Before elections, it was a different story because we did not have the 14th Finance Commission recommendation, but after election, we did approve whatever the 14th Finance Commission said, and the tax devolution for the states was increased from 32% to 42%, and as a result, we cannot give the special category status because the 14th Finance Commission says so, says the central government. Added to it, if this particular issue is taken up, what would happen? There would be many other states which should also seek for it. Let's say, for example, Bihar is also making a proposal. Then we also have the example of Odisha as well. If all these states start asking, then there'll be a crunch of resources at the disposal of the central government. So if Andhra Pradesh is given a special category status, other states would also open up. This would mean that we would be opening the Pandora box. We would have volley of states coming up with such a proposal, and ultimately we cannot satisfy all the states, which is why special category status cannot be given to Andhra Pradesh, says the central government. Added to it, it also says that we are providing what is called as the special assistance. Yes, we do understand that the state of Andhra Pradesh does not have a capital. We do understand that it requires a lot of funding when it comes to building up of a new infrastructure in the new capital. So what we would be providing is the special assistance to the state of Andhra Pradesh and not special category status. In fact, there was one of the committees that was appointed back in the year 2013. This committee was called as the Raghuram Rajan Committee. So this committee looks into the idea what should be the devolution of funds to the states, how much money should be given to the states. According to it, it comes up with what is called as the multi-dimensional index. According to this multi-dimensional index, it goes on to state that states will be divided into three types. One is what is called as the least developed state, followed by the less developed state, and lastly what we would have is the relatively developed state. For example, states like Odisha, Bihar, Madhya Pradesh would fall under the least developed states. Then we have the states like Manipur, Andhra Pradesh, Jammu and Kashmir, which would fall under the less developed states. And finally, relatively developed states will have states like Goa, Tamil Nadu, Punjab, so on and so forth. So on the basis of this multi-dimensional index, these states will have to be given money, says the Raghuram Rajan Committee. Added to it, it also goes on to say that this very idea of special category status should not be carried forward as a legacy from the past. So it clearly goes on to say that such special category status should be completely subsumed as part of the multi-dimensional index, as well as the fixed allocation given to the state governments, as well as additional allocation given to the state governments as part of the multi-dimensional index. So it clearly points out that this whole idea of special category status will have to be subsumed under the multi-dimensional index as projected by the Rajan Committee. So we have the central government which clearly goes on to say that we would provide special assistance to Andhra Pradesh and not accord special category status. That is why it is not being granted the special category status, is what is this article all about. Now let's look into the next article. This article says sinking Sundarbans. The article here is speaking about climate change and its impact on Sundarbans. Let us try and understand what is this article all about. Sundarbans happens to be the world's largest mangrove system. It has an archipelago, it has multiple islands in this particular area, and it is located on the eastern side of India in the Bay of Bengal region. Sundarbans, what does it mean? When we speak about Sundarbans, it can be divided into two parts. One is called as Sundar, the other is Bans. What does Sundar stand for? It stands for beautiful. What does Bans stands for? It stands for forest. So Sundarbans basically is nothing but beautiful forest in the Bengali language. And the Sundarbans was also recognized as a UNESCO World Heritage Site back in the year 1987 by the UNESCO. So remember, this can be very important from the preliminary examination point of view. As we discussed, we have the Sundarbans which has number of islands. One of the largest islands in Sundarbans happened to be the Sagar Island. So the Sagar Island is one of the largest and most populated areas when it comes to the Sundarbans. This particular area of Sagar Island is also facing a lot of threat as well. Why? That is because of coastal erosion, that is because of the rise of water in the oceanic water, and as a result number of people are losing their lands, and as a result not only in Sagar Island but there are many other islands as well where people are losing their lands because of rise in the sea level. So this article here makes a mention of Kozaba Island, it makes a mention of Nakhana Island, Gadkhali Island, Sachthelia Island and Sagar Island. So remember, all these islands are in Sundarbans and can also be probably asked in your preliminary examination. So what is that we have to understand here? The article here is speaking about the loss of land either because of the climate change or because of the anthropogenic induced factors, and ultimately it is the people who are the major sufferers. So we need to have the government come up with some of the measures, is what is this article all about. Let's look at some of the important statistical data. NASA Landsat satellite imagery shows that the sea level rise has risen in Sundarbans by an average of 3 centimeters a year over the past 2 decades, which means there is a rise of the sea level of water. It has inundated this particular area, and ultimately number of people have lost their lands, and as a result they had to move to a different location, ultimately losing on their livelihood provision. So this raises couple of concerns in the region of Sundarbans. What are these concerns? First important problem that we have is with respect to the island loss. What do we mean by it? There are some islands where people were living. Now these islands are completely taken away because of the rise of the water. Added to this, there are other islands as well where people were living in their houses, and now what we are witnessing is a rise of the water. So this means there is island loss because of the coastal erosion, rise in the sea level because of the cyclone intensity, and ultimately because of flooding as well. So who are the major sufferers? People living in this island are the major sufferers because the whole island is gobbled by the sea. And at the same time, in few islands where there is rise of the seawater, there are also situations where there are people losing away their lands. What are the major reasons? What are the contributing factors? This article currently goes on to say the trees are being cut down rigorously from the forest for the firewood. Thus, the green cover of the rich mangrove forest is vanishing. So what is happening? There is the anthropogenic factor that is coming into picture. What is it? Because of the firewood, because of the agricultural activities, because of the industrial activities in this particular area, what is happening? There is felling of the trees. These trees are felled, the wood is taken up for the industrial activities, and as a result what we have is this particular problem being raised in this area. Let's take some of the examples. The tree stock in this particular area has depreciated over a long period of time. Let's say if we have to consider the Sundari trees, this has decreased by about 76% in the last 7 decades. So the number of trees that are fallen is comparatively increased, and as a result what we see is a threat to this particular ecosystem. After deforestation, another factor that has been posing a massive threat to the land happens to be the soil erosion. What do we mean by it? Let's say for example you have number of trees in this particular area. These trees were able to prevent the soil erosion. Why? Because they have a deep root system, and these root systems were able to prevent the soil erosion. But now what is happening? There is felling of the trees, so we are taking away the roots of this particular tree. There is felling of the trees that is happening, and as a result they are not able to prevent the soil erosion. Having not enough trees to hold the soil, high tides and rain, the mangrove region has lost large tracts to the sea as well. That happens to be another major concern in this particular area. Added to it, we did also discuss that there is a rise of the seawater. What would be the problem? When there is rise of the seawater, what would happen? There would be agricultural lands. These agricultural lands is where the people would be conducting their farming activities. But what would happen? Because there is excessive rise of the water, it is not the fresh water that is flowing into these farm fields, but instead it is the salty water. Because it is the salty water that is entering the farm areas, what would happen? The yield would comparatively drop as well, and they would not be able to get what is the expectation from this farming field. So what would happen? Rise in the water level means that the salty water flows into the farming fields, and ultimately the yield in this particular area will also drop. Whenever the farming has faltered, people in this particular area also turn to fishing as well. So they believe that since farming is not working for us, let's turn towards fishing, because this is also another source of livelihood. But what is happening? There is commercial trawling that is taking place in this particular region. Let's say for example you have one of the fish types called as hilsa. It has a lot of nutritional value, and as a result people consume a lot of hilsa. But what is happening? Because of commercial trawling, because of excessive pollution, because of the combination of land degradation, people are not able to get fishes in this particular area as well. Added to it, there are also people who also go ahead with aquaculture, but because of the incursions of the saline water into the fishing ponds as well, it is limiting the ability of the people to rehabilitate themselves. So what is happening here? Raising water levels has also degraded the cultivable land quality, reduced the crop yield, leading to food and the drinking water crisis in this particular region. So when people do not have the food to eat, when they do not have the livelihood measures, what would happen? There would be migration of the people. So they would start moving from this particular region to a different region. So this will ultimately lead to a topic called as environmental refugees. So what would happen? This particular region is no longer able to sustain the economic life of all the inhabitants in that particular region. As a result, they move from this island to another island or to a different city, and ultimately this causes the problems of accommodation, employment, food, water, so on and so forth. So ultimately, who will be the major sufferers? People in the Sundarban regions will be the major sufferers. So what should the government do? The government in the past has long relied on building the embankments and keeping the seawater out of it, but this is not helping the people in this particular region. So what we require is a coordination between India and Bangladesh. Why India and Bangladesh? That is because these mangroves are not only present in India, but they're also present in Bangladesh as well. So what we require is an understanding with the Bangladesh government. So the two countries will have to understand the importance of the mangroves, ensure that all these developmental activities that are taking anthropogenic factors like pollution, felling, infrastructure, agriculture, which is more than the sustainable practices, such should be kept a check on, and ultimately if there are any people who are violating it, penal provisions will also have to be imposed on them. So what we require is a coordination between India and Bangladesh to prevent illegal logging in this particular region. It is this that we have to understand in reference to this article. Now let's look into the next article. This article is a related article. This article goes on to say scanty snowfall could signal Kashmir's warming climate. So this once again is speaking about climate change, how it has had its impact in Jammu and Kashmir. Let's look at some of the stats as given under this article. This article says Jammu and Kashmir's summer capital Srinagar saw a significant drop in number of spells of snow this winter from those in the previous 4 years, with weather experts predicting more warmer ones than the colder ones, unlike in the past. So it goes on to say in the month of November 2021, Srinagar did not see wet spells of snowfall, but when you go back to the year 2020, they had 5 wet spells. In the year 2019, it was 11, and 4 in the year 2018. Jammu and Kashmir every year in the month of December also witnesses what is called as Chilai Kallan, which is nothing but extreme winter conditions. But in 2021, they only saw wet spells but no snowfall in the year 2021. So what is happening here? There is climate change impact that is being felt in the Union Territory of Jammu and Kashmir. If we have to look further, the biggest indicator of the warm winter this year happens to be the early blooming of the flowers in the week of January, which otherwise starts from second or third week of February. So all this have led to climate change impact in the Union Territory of Jammu and Kashmir. This is not only seen in Jammu and Kashmir, it is also seen in multiple other states as well. Let's take the example of Himachal Pradesh. In Himachal Pradesh, there is untimely snowfall. This is damaging crops and causing crop illnesses as well. It has resulted loss to multiple people. How? Let's say for example, because of the untimely snowfall, there is loss of apple, and ultimately this will also hit potatoes, this will also hit cabbage crops as well. So number of crops are impacted because of the climate change. Added to it, if we take into consideration the state of Gujarat, there are some regions in Gujarat which have seen excessive rainfall. These rainfalls should not have happened in Gujarat, but because of climate change, there is excessive rainfall. Temperature has increased in considerable regions by about 3.3 degrees centigrade, and there is also an anticipation that the minimum temperature might also drop in the next few decades as well. So there is increase of temperature, there might be decrease of temperature, and ultimately Gujarat is also bound to suffer because of the impact of the climate change. Now let's take the example of Assam. There is one of the tribes called as the missing tribe. This is one of the tribes which has been given the ST status, that is the scheduled tribe status, by the government of India in the name of Miri. So what is happening? There is the missing tribe which is accorded a particular scheduled tribe status in the state of Arunachal Pradesh and Assam. But this particular tribe also has a fishing habit. The fishes that they consume is what is called as the minnow fishes. But because of climate change, because of the issues around this particular rivers in Arunachal Pradesh and Assam, what is happening? Because of the changing rain pattern, there is a dwindling catch to the missing tribe. Then let's take the example of Rajasthan. Pali district in Rajasthan has been receiving heavy rainfall as well. This particular soil in this Pali district does not have much of percolation power, and as a result heavy rains have led to waterlogging in the fields, and ultimately they have harmed the crops in this particular region of Pali district in Rajasthan. Finally, if we have to take the example of Odisha, we have something called as the Satabaya. What is the Satabaya? It stands for seven brothers or seven islands. There are about seven islands which includes Gobindapur, Mahanpur, Karikulla, Chintamanipur, Badgarimatha, Satbaya and also Kahapur. And now out of these seven brothers or the seven islands, what we have is just two islands, that is Satabaya and Kanhupur. The remain have been submerged under the Bay of Bengal, and people are also vulnerable to the rising sea level, as even islands are being consumed by the rise of the sea level. So what we understand is that it is not only a phenomenon that is seen in Jammu and Kashmir, or as we just discussed in Sundarbans, but it is being seen in multiple other states in India, and as a result there would be people's livelihood which will be impacted, and ultimately we may see the issue of environmental refugees in the near future. It is this that we have to understand in reference to this article. Now let's look into the next article. This article here is speaking about World Food Program. The World Food Program happens to be a food assistance program of the United Nations, and this happens to be the world's largest humanitarian organization. What does it focus on? It focuses on two aspects. One is hunger, the other happens to be food security. It was initially started or founded back in the year 1961. So remember, it was founded in 1961 and it is headquartered in Rome. So this can be very important from the preliminary examination point of view. What does this organization do? Basically, it delivers food assistance program to number of countries during the emergency. It can be because of war, it can be because of civil conflict, it can be because of natural disaster or because of famines. So this particular organization will provide emergency assistance basically as a developmental aid or as a rehabilitation program. So the World Food Program is primarily funded by the voluntary contributions made by various governments. So various governments on their own make the voluntary contributions, and that is how this particular organization is able to assist number of countries world over with the rehabilitation and development aid. Let's say for example, it delivered about 2 million tons of food during Ethiopia's 1984 famine. It was also present in Sudan, Rwanda and Kosovo, later in Asia during the 2004 tsunami crisis, and it has also helped multiple other states as well. Now in the present situation, India would be providing about 50,000 tons of wheat. This will be exported to Afghanistan as part of the humanitarian assistance. So India is contributing as a humanitarian gesture to Afghanistan with the help of the World Food Program. Why does the world need a food program? That is because we have to eradicate hunger, and that happens to be a United Nations sustainable goal which we have to achieve by the year 2030, and basically one of the organizations working to ensure that hunger is taken away from the world happens to be the World Food Program, which happens to be an organization under United Nations. Another important pointer from the preliminary examination is for the year 2020, the Nobel Peace Prize was accorded to this UN agency. Now let's look into the next article. This article says, amidst a wave of coups and a pandemic. The article here is speaking about military coups taking place in multiple countries in Africa. Why are these military coups happening? What are the reasons behind it? How many countries have seen a military coup in Africa? What are the repercussions to the political instability in these regions? How is it going to impact India and relationship with African countries? Has been explained on 10th of February 2022. Kindly look into it. Now let's look into the next article. This article says mRNA vaccine. We already have a video about the vaccines. It explains about the vaccines, the various types of vaccines. The link will be provided in the video, so kindly look into it. Now let's look into the mains practice questions. Special category status as an instrument has outlived its relevance and utility. Discuss. Next question. Climate change coupled with anthropogenic disturbances poses a serious threat to Sundarbans. Comment. So please write all your answers on the comment section, peer review, and do give positive feedback to your friends' answers. So this is it for today. Thank you for watching. All the best.